We're recording. Please be mindful that this meeting is being recorded and mindful of language for defamation reasons.
I declare the 24th of May meeting open for the Ordinary Council of the Muswell Shire Council. I'll ask Councillor Deanne Douglas to do the acknowledgement of country.
Yama, I would like to acknowledge the Wanneroo people, the traditional custodians of the land we meet on tonight. I pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging, for they hold the memories, the traditions and the culture of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people across the nation. We have been elected by our community to deliver as our elders of our lands have done in the past. I would also like to recognise the strong ongoing connection of First Nations people of the lands and waters where we do our work and their commitment to care for country.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. I'll ask the civic prayer to be read by Councillor Louise Dunn.
Almighty God, for whom comes every good and perfect gift, we give you thanks for the blessings you bestow upon us in this Shire. Grant to those who hold office in this council the spirit of justice and truth, of wisdom and charity, that mindful of our responsibility and of the needs of those we serve, we may promote the true welfare of your people, exercise wisely and faithfully the authority committed to us, and advance the common good. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Councillor Dunn. If everyone could be seated. Councillors, just might want to bring your microphone in as close as possible. And for questions, just want to acknowledge that we've got some public participation tonight. We have Christine Hope, Alicia Priestley, Wayne Perrott, Jan Kamstra, Robert Hindley Taylor, Cameron Taylor, and David Casson, Nitin Gupta, Nathan Badishal in relation to 10.1, and Mr. Greenville Taylor in relation to item 12.11. We also have Ronald Wakens via video link for item 10.2. Any apologies in leave of absence? Have we got Councillor Bowditch online? Yes? Okay, fantastic. So there's no apologies or leave of absence. Confirmation of the previous minutes. Do I have someone to move that?
So moved.
So moved by Councillor Woodruff, seconded. Councillor McNeil. Public participation we've been through. Item 7, there are minutes. General business. Anything from general business? Sorry?
Declarations.
We have not got that there, sorry. Any declarations of pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests?
Yes, I'll start with Woody. You go with. All right. Item 12.2 on page 571, sponsorship request, race club. I have insignificant non-pecuniary interest. I'm a member of that club.
Thank you, Councillor Scholes.
Yes, item 11.6, page 410, Malabar Resources S138 Roads Act 1993 permit, Thomas Mitchell Drive. I have a preliminary interest because my employer has a contract with Malabar.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Councillor Lecky.
Item 12.17, the DAP project. I've made a significant interest donation.
Thank you, Councillor Lecky. Any other councillors on my right side? Councillor Mahajan.
Item 10.3, pay number 284, 4th Lawrence Street. I own the business opposite the de-application site.
Thank you, Councillor Mahajan.
11.6.
You just have to push it.
Sorry. 11.6. My employer also works for Malabar.
Nothing for Councillor Barry. Over to this side, Councillor Dunn.
Yes, 10.6, Community War on Waste Grant. I'm an employee of the Department of Education at the Muswellbrook South School.
Thank you, Councillor Drayton.
Yes, item 10.2, page 108 of a non-pecuniary interest. I've dealt with the applicant in a former role, former employment, and it may be viewed that I wouldn't be able to make a decision in that matter.
Thank you, Councillor Drayton. Councillor McNeil.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Item 10.3, I'm declaring a significant pecuniary interest. That's the addition to the commercial premises at number 4 Lawn Street, as I'm a part owner in number 3 Lawn Street, and a insignificant non-pecuniary interest in item 10.5. That's the health services application where I was have been a past client.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Woodruff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Community infrastructure, item 11.7 on page 413, Mangoola Coal Operations, section 138 Roads Act. I have a significant pecuniary, Mr Mayor. My employer undertakes work for the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other? No one's listening. Okay. Moving on now to the public participation, which I've been over. No one. Just go to. Sorry, Councillor Bowditch, do you have any declarations to be made?
I only can hear you.
Councillor Bowditch, can you hear me? Can you give us some type of wave or signal?
I say nothing.
He's on mute.
No, it doesn't look like it.
I don't think they can hear us. Just a moment, sorry for the people in the public gallery until we get this sorted. Okay, we'll go to public participation and in order, and just until we get Councillor Bowditch and a few IT issues fixed. I'll ask Christine Hope if she could please come forward in opposition to item 10.1, the boarding house development. The button in front of you, if you push that, it should stay on. Now we've got the technology fixed, and you've got 3 minutes to speak. You might just want to bring that microphone down a little bit. Thank you.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Chris Hope. I reside at 7 Francis Street, Muswellbrook, and have done for the last 33 years. Our property backs onto the development, the site, the proposed Barber House. Whilst I'm not opposing the development of this site, I am concerned that this particular development may have a massive impact on my livelihood. You see, I run a small business from my home and have done so for the past 33 years. I'm a registered early childhood educator with Family Daycare. During this time, I have had the privilege to care for hundreds of young, vulnerable, local children in my very private, safe, secure backyard. Therefore, if this development goes ahead, I fear that I will be forced into early retirement, as my business will no longer be private, safe, or secure. It is stated that the boarding house is for the lower socio-economic sector, but there is no explanation of the preferred tenants, and looking at the management plan, I am very concerned that the accommodation could well be for criminal justice clients, whether they be released prisoners or people on bail, a parole house. The management plan, it states There will be no advertising signs, which I feel that's very strange. The boarding house will be limited to low socio-economic clients. Residents will be occupying rooms for extended periods of time. All tenants are required to provide a list of personal medications to the manager. No short-term tenants, no alcohol is permitted. Visitors are only allowed in the communal areas. No tenants can provide their own furniture, they must use the furniture provided. These are all requirements of criminal justice type housing. Will the tenants be male, females, or mixed gender? Is there a possibility one could be a pedophile? This could be devastating for my business. As the development is two-storey in nature, this will enable tenants to easily peer into my previously private backyard from their balconies. Whilst the developer has stated that screens will be put in place to prevent clear view from their said balconies, they will still have some form of vision into my backyard. The developer states that frosted glass will be used on the windows. However, the windows can still be opened and will be opened at times for airflow. It is stated that the fence will be a minimum of 1800 high. But is this from ground height or from the finished floor height? Furthermore, it's not difficult to peer over a fence with the use of a chair or step ladder, or for that matter, to take a photo over the fence of a small child without permission. The developer has allocated the smoking area to be at the rear of the premises, near my yard, where the 0 to 5-year-olds regularly play. The developer mentions that there will be many job opportunities, such as manager and possibility of cleaning and maintenance. However, I can only see one job opportunity, that being the manager. As it states in the development application...
Sorry to cut you there, the 3 minutes is up. Have you got an extension that you'd like to wish for?
Yes, please. It's not much longer.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
As it states that the applicant, that the rooms will be kept clean and tidy and rubbish will be removed by tenants with weekly inspections by the manager to see that this is adhered to. It also is the responsibility of the manager to take the bins out weekly. If this development is allowed to continue in its current form as two-storey complex with no reassurance from the developer about the type of clientele, I feel I can no longer guarantee secure, safe environment, and I've previously been able to offer families that use my service, and I will be forced to close my business. This is something I'm really not ready to do yet.
Thank you for your speech there. I'll now ask Alicia Priestley, if you wishes to speak on the same item, if you would like to come forward. On the screen behind. Have we audio? Alicia, can you hear me? She's on mute. Alicia. Alicia, you're on mute currently. Can you hear me? Are you able to access your mic? We will have to move on until that's rectified. Mr. Wayne Perrott, who is to speak on relation to, in opposition to 10.1, the same as the previous. 3 minutes, sir. You have to speak.
My name's Wayne Perrott. My wife and myself live at 39 Maitland Street, which is to the western side of said development. As Chrissy has enlightened everyone on a lot of stuff there, that sort of, I'm going just through my list here, she's covered a lot of what I had to say. Now, the main thing that worries me is, and I'll ask a lot of you to put yourselves in my shoes, Like, as I know, a lot of you've got teenage kids. My house borders right on the edge of this place, and they're saying the fence is 1.8. Now, the slab is 500 mil from the ground to the floor level. So that's now making that fence 1.3, which on me is there. Now, that's at the double sliding doors facing my place. Now, I've got a 17-year-old daughter, and it just worries me that my privacy has now gone from 100% to 0. And in the pictures in the proposal, there's the shadow. I don't know, I was never real bright at school, but it said our shadow 9 AM is approximately 50 mil over our fence. Now I don't know what happens to the rest of the sun for 3.5 hours previous to that, but in the western afternoon sun, it's shadowing right over the block a good 8 metres. Now I don't know why it doesn't shadow over the morning, but it doesn't on this. So that's not right. The other concern I've got more than anything is there's 23 units, 14 car parks. That means a lot of vehicles will be parked out on the street. Now, that worries me for my family, reversing out, driving out, entering the highway. I've got elderly neighbours who are doing the same. And, you know, I know the state rule is 0.3, whatever it is, per person for parking. But that's fine in the cities where you've got buses, but not too many people here don't have one car each. The other thing is these glazed windows. There's 15 windows approximately on the top floor. Now, glazed or not, you can open a window. I don't, you know. So as far as that goes, that just doesn't cut it in my book. In the western sun, this is a very light coloured building that's stated not to be over 8.5 metres, but it's on the plans it's 13. Now I've got that full face on the eastern side of my house, so the western sun is going to reflect, you know, pretty bad on my side of the fence from the 15 windows and 10 double doors. I just can't see how a building like this, they're saying it's, you know, for the homeless and all that, there's nothing there for families. It's a one-person room. They can't have visitors to their rooms. They have to list their medication to the manager, like not too many units for normal people are like that. And just around this area, you know, I've lived in Muswell for 52 years, born and bred, and a lot of the people are close to that too. And you know, we've bought houses there and we plan to retire there, but if these sort of buildings go ahead, I just don't know how it can. Anyway, thank you.
I'll just get to the stage that I'll ask Ms Hope to come back. I just want to check and see if any councillors, before we get through the rest of them, have any questions for Mr Perrott? No councillors have any questions at present? Or for Ms Hope? No? Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Moving on to Jan Kamstra, if you could please take the lectern. You've got 3 minutes, the same as the other speakers. And then we'll check and see if we have Alicia Priestley available. Thanks, Jan, if you just press the button.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to ask for deferment of this matter, as I found out about 9:30 this morning that this application was in. I'm speaking on behalf of Muswellbrook South B and C. We were not aware of this. I don't know if the school got any information on this development. We're talking about 500 kids, where some of them are actually under protection of ABOs, of court orders, and with the development of a boarding house like this going to this place, we could see detrimental implications of that. It's to me, like all these guys are saying, with single rooms, no visitors, it's clearly reinstating people into the social life after where they have been. I don't think it's the right place. Muswellbrook would be a great option, absolutely, as we all can see, just not at this place, 400 or 500 metres from school with 500 kids, and that is forecasted to grow to 750 in the next 5 years. So that's all I've got to say for so far. If I can get more time, that would be greatly appreciated. If not, so be it. Take into consideration your own kids or grandkids or cousins walking past there and something happens. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Any councillors wish to ask a question of the speaker, Mr. Cantrip? None? Okay, thank you, Jan. Appreciate your time. I'll now go on to Robert Hingley and Cameron Taylor in relation to the same item. Same rules apply, 3 minutes to speak to. If you just press the button in. Thank you.
Yes, I have many concerns about this proposed development. I'm retired and I spend most of my day in my workshop, and it's very close to my fence. I have a very small yard. I have a swimming pool in that area as well, which is under renovation at the moment. This proposed development completely along the length of my property overlooks me, especially being that it's 2-storey. I will have, under these circumstances, I will have no privacy whatsoever. I'm also concerned with the element of people that may live there, and I believe that there will be a criminal element that'll be on my doorstep. My security will be compromised greatly. I'll just give you a few measurements. From the fence, it's approximately 5 metres from my workshop window. From the pool fence to the property fence is only 11 metres. From the fence to the house is 17 metres. They're approximations. That's very close. I'm also concerned with there'll be hard surfaces with this development, and also with this, there's another development that's in the works, a restaurant on the corner. With all these hard surfaces, there will be a lot of water runoff onto my property. I've submitted a lot of photos during storm conditions to the council. You have them on record, where my place is flooded. With a lot more hard surfaces developed, it'll be so much easier for my place to flood.
Yeah, you can pass those images.
You have them on record.
Yes, sir.
Also, with this proposed development spanning the whole of the back of my property, my backyard will be lit up at night and I'll be subject to more noise. So my peace and quiet in retirement will be completely gone. Okay, I think that covers most of the I'm concerned about. My son wants to say a couple of words.
Yeah, as of with this property development, I have a cat that lives at my dad's, and it borders I have a kennel for them at the back fence there, as if, you know, if you have people in this proposed house here, you'd have smokers, you know, people, you know, jumping the fence possibly if it's, you know.
His living area is right on near the fence there, in the proposed smoking area.
Yeah, the concerns are, would be if they are people that came out of a rehab from a prison, you know, my dad has expensive tools in his workshop. He has, you know, a nice house that we don't want anyone breaking in. That's a very big concern, security. The flooding, as you guys can see, is a concern, and parking. I don't know where the staff park or anything, but it doesn't show much of a parking lot there. It's kind of a concern, like where are they going to park, that kind of thing.
No problem, mate. The 3 minutes are up, and I appreciate both of you speaking. We will, of course, take that into consideration and everyone's concerns. I'll just check if there's any questions from any of the councillors just before you sit down, guys. Sorry, if you guys wanted to come back to lectern, I believe we've got a question from one of the councillors.
Yeah, I just want to know where you're located in relation to.
My dad's at 3 Francis Street.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors have any questions? Thank you. Thank you for your time. I'll just check again if we have Alicia Priestley.
Yes,
online.
I am here.
Okay, thank you, Alicia. You probably heard the other comments. You have 3 minutes if you wish to speak to the item 10.1.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. My issues that I honestly have is from the fact that when I purchased 5 Francis Street 7 years ago now, I think, was the family environment that I was going to be able to provide for my 3 children. Since finding out that the proposal for the building to be built on Maitland Road is that it overlooks into my backyard, the safety for my 3 children, which I have a teenage daughter, 2 teenage daughters, and a son that is ADD and developmentally delayed. If they were to see, especially my son, to see behaviours that aren't okay for the types of people that could be moving in there is a concern for me. Also, it hasn't been very clear in what is going to be there for those types of people. I've not really honestly heard that to have a building that you would have someone supervise it 24 hours a day, or that someone would have to provide their medication and a time frame that they can come and go. I personally, the property and having the people in Francis Street, we are a family in that street and we like to get together and have talks and have a fire. Is that going to then now affect us, that we won't be able to have our catch-ups and those sorts of things because we have people that are so close into our own backyards? They are just a few of my concerns, as the rest of the street have those similar concerns.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Do any councillors have any questions for Ms. Presley? No? Thank you very much once again. I'll just have to ask you to put yourself on mute, sorry, just until we get through the rest of them. We now have David Casson in support of item 10.1 by video. David, the same as the rest of the other speakers, you've got 3 minutes.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Councillor, staff and those in the public gallery. Thank you for the opportunity to make this brief presentation. Due to the time restrictions, this will be short and hopefully to the point. I'd also like to confirm that the owner, Mr. Nitin Gupta, will also make a short address following myself, just outlining his reasons for pursuing this development. I think it's important just to note the comments in Mr. McTaggart's report to Council tonight. I'd like to emphasise there were no objections from Transport New South Wales New South Wales Police, Council's Building Surveyor, Senior Environmental Health Officer, Community Services Section, Water and Wastewater Engineers, and the Roads and Drainage Engineers. So it's certainly been assessed by many different facets within Council and external to Council. The development complies with the former SEP for affordable rental housing, which was the relevant legislation at the time that this was application was submitted to Council. The development is generally compliant with the updated SEP, and the new provisions regarding restriction of the operation of the boarding house for affordable housing is proposed and accepted. The development complies with other relevant state environmental planning policies with the Muswellbrook LEP, and it's generally in accordance with the Muswellbrook Development Control Plan. There were 5 submissions received when the application was originally notified. There are numerous changes were made to the plans to acknowledge those submissions and the issues that were raised, and they were responded to accordingly wherever possible. The amended plans were subsequently placed on exhibition again, and a further 5 submissions were lodged. And we absolutely acknowledge the right of all those submissions to have been made and the concerns to be raised. Council staff have addressed the matters that were raised in the submissions, which are detailed in the assessment report, and are of the opinion that the development is appropriate for the locality, which is reflected in the recommendation to Council for this application to be approved. Whilst it's not specifically relevant to this application, I'd like to point out that this same site had received development approval for a 2-storey motel, DA 114 of 2011, back in February 2012. While this application obviously has lapsed, it does reflect that the land has been identified for some time as being appropriate for further development beyond its existing single building residential use. We also note that the recent notification from Council advising that an application for change of use from residential to a restaurant has been lodged for the adjoining property, 43 Maitland Street. My client is supportive of such application. We believe that this is a reflection that the locality is developing in the way that the zoning of the land seeks to allow for. I don't really have anything further to add to that, Mr Mayor. I don't want to go through individual issues that have been brought up by those that are making the submissions. I think most of that has been considered in the assessment of the report.
Thank you, Mr Cusson. That was the 3 minutes I've just been advised by the General Manager. So thank you again. I'll just ask you to put your microphone on mute too, as we have now in support of item 10.1 of the boarding house, Nitin Gupta.
Good evening, Mr Mayor.
The last speakers, 3 minutes. Mr Gupta, if you wish to proceed now.
Good evening, Mr Mayor and the committee members and all the audience, please. My name is Nitin Gupta and I'm the owner of the land. My main objective in buying the land was to something for community in desperate needs. This land is not for me to make a profit or to do something. If I wanted to make a profit, I could have made as a motel, as David referred before. We could have come back and put another DA lodge into the land and to have another motel put over there. I have been in constant touch and had several discussions with Mary Spores, the general manager of the Upper Hunter Homeless. They provide homeless services and domestic family violence services to the Singleton, Muswellbrook and Upper Hunter communities. We want them, they will be after if this application gets approved, they will be managing this boarding house on behalf of us for the people who really needs. There are so many people who are homeless at the moment and who can't afford because of the affordability to the people. For the housing thing, they've been moved out of the house or the domestic violence or whatever the reason. All those people who I've heard the people who said before that they're worried about the safety of the children, they're worried about the people of the neighbor. Everything has been taken into consideration. We're not putting criminals in the boarding houses. This has been for the people who really need, the community really needs the people who needs the desperate need of the houses. We also, there's a substantial need in the community for affordable housing at this time. Therefore, this 22 rooms and one manager house, it'll be like we've been talked with Mary's spouse, she said that she'll take them within a day. There's so many desperate people who need the boarding house. We all deserve to have a roof under our heads, no matter what our circumstances are. After doing extensive research and checking the zoning permissible to the boarding house, that's the reason I bought this one, to give it back to the community. We lost this application over a year ago, and David Carson and my architect Nathan, we've been working with Mr. Hamish McGrath to represent, who's been representing Muswellbrook Council. For the whole year, we have covered all the issues, all the objections which have been raised by everyone. As you can see in the notes, which is there, every single issue has been raised. We have raised, like for the privacy side, we have raised the windows heights, we've raised all the things. So I'm not really sure why will somebody going to stand on the stool to look for the children or what are the things. We are not there to, we are there to provide the houses for the community. And that's what I want to say to the council, Mr. Mayor, that we are there for the community. We're not there for our personal gain. And as I've been discussing with Mary Spurs, the Muswellbrook Council really needs the houses for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. That was spot on 3 minutes. Thank you very much for that. Councillors, any questions? Yes, Councillor Drayton.
Yes, Mr. Gupta, it's Councillor Drayton here. I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Did you say you had visited the site yourself? I understand you're the owner, but you visited the site yourself in that residential area?
Yes, I did.
And you understand the bulk and scale, obviously, of the building. It's you that's behind it all, and you have the view that fits within the precinct you plan to build it in.
Yes.
Secondly, you made a comment that, I'll just quote you well right there when you said it, if I wanted to make money, I would have built a motel like the one that had already been approved some years before.
Yes.
Did you mean that, and then you went on to say, to speak about homeless, and I certainly share the same concerns in our community about homelessness. But you then went on to say, after you said, if I wanted to make money, I would have built a motel like was already approved. Did you mean by saying that you're building this and running this for no commercial gain, purely because you want to put I think your words were, put a roof over people's heads?
Yes, that's true. Basically, the reason we've been running it to give it back to the community, it's not for my personal gain, or it's not for the thing. As I said, if you have to run motels that provide much bigger income than what the boarding house needs at the same time. And if the amount of money we're going to spend in building this boarding house, the same amount of money we can spend to build a motel.
Thank you, Mr. Good.
Thank you.
Any other councillors with a question? Councillor Douglas?
Yeah, my question in regards to Upper Hunter Homeless Support, how long have you been in negotiations with them for them to run this boarding house for you, and how long have you been conversing with Mary in regards to it? Because I haven't seen that in the application.
Before Mary recently, before there was a gentleman by Mr. Lewis, I've been in constant in conversation with Mr. Lewis, who's looking after it for more than 8 months. And I had a conversation with Mary as well. They've also got a house in Singleton, which they want us to, with the house being burned down, which they want us to look into that one as well.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Any further questions from any councillors in relation? Yes, Councillor McNeil.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Good, just in relation to the bulk of the objections, this is just my view, they tend to stem from the fact that it's a two-storey building, which is in an unreasonable position with regard to privacy and overshadowing and suitability for the area, the character of the area. Would you consider modifying your plans to single-storey?
This building is not into the building height limit is 9 meters in the area. It's not about 6 meters. With two floor on the building is basically That's what is permissible in the area.
Just
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Mayor, just the question was in order to appease the concerns of the objectors.
I think it'll be very hard to change the architect on the bit because it does not meet the criteria. I understand what you're saying to make it to one floor. It's not really at the same time because if you're going to provide the necessity of everybody, then we need more rooms. So there's no point. The land which we have at the moment is substitute the whole the FSI meets all the FSI criteria, meets all the overshadowing, meets every single criteria. If you look at the Mr. McCarthy report in the council, we meet every single guidelines of the on that one. So I cannot understand why do we have to do it.
I would just say that some of those conditions are subjective.
All the conditions are listed in the which was there when suggested. Every single conditions are there, and all if you read all the notes on there, every single thing we meet every single condition.
Yeah, I can see that, but council does have discretion regarding
Sure, exactly. Yeah,
I
respect that. Yes.
Thank you.
Any other further questions from councillors? Councillor Scholes?
My only question is with regards to this homeless and negotiations. I know myself, I met with that particular group last week, and this did not come up. I'm just like some confirmation from staff or someone that this actually is a partnership that is actually planned.
I'll ask the General Manager if she could please direct that.
Thank you, councillors. Could I ask the council officer in charge who's been reviewing the DA, Mr. McTaggart, to just inform us if he's aware of any communication between the developer and Upper Hunter Homeless?
I haven't received any formal communication from Upper Hunter Homeless in relation to it, but Mr. Nitzan has said on other occasions through the assessment that he has been in contact with them.
Okay, any further questions from councillors? Okay, thank you very much for your time there, Mr. Gupta. I'll now ask for Nathan Battershaw in relation to item 10.1 in support of the boarding house. If you could just speak for 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and the councillors and everyone else viewing tonight. Look, I was mainly here from an architectural point of view to answer any questions, but look, in support of what David Cassens, our town planner, and Mr. Gupta has mentioned, we're well below the maximum height limit. We have spent a numerous amount of time over the last 12 months with Hamish and the council staff going backward and forward. We've made numerous changes to the design to give a better outcome for both privacy, overshadowing, the bulk and the scale of the site. Obviously, knowing the fact that although there's some dwellings with residential use, it is zoned appropriately for this type of use, and we've made a lot of RFI changes. If you look back over the report, based on some excellent feedback that Hamish and his team provided. So look, I'm in support of this development. It's been very well thought out, and obviously with the affordable housing crisis now, what it is across, especially New South Wales, with the cost of rent, especially the cost of rental. And look, you're not just going to get, I know there's concerns about criminals and that sort of thing renting these places, but a lot of these places are needing to be rented by people who are working everyday jobs and are struggling to rent houses with such a low vacancy rate of rental accommodation now. And that's the whole reason why this affordable housing set has come into play. And it's I think it's never been needed more than now, especially in New South Wales. So that's a few thoughts for myself. So thank you for the opportunity to speak.
No problem, thank you. Any questions at all from the councillors? Councillor Douglas.
Yeah, mine's more of an observation than a question. Just before, we've been stating that this is based on homelessness for people who are in need, but you've just made the comment about workers who aren't able to rent a place in town. Two entirely different concepts as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you. Councillor Douglas, any further?
No, I just totally agree with Councillor Douglas. We do not need additional accommodation for coal miners drive in, drive out. Homeless is a totally different thing. We have a very large and extensive homeless and domestic violence issue in Muswellbrook, and it's got to be addressed. But it's whether this is suitable and whether we have enough information, or whether we've actually gleaned enough information at this stage. So a question.
Thank you, Councillor Scholes. I echo that, and a bit more perplexed than when I started from the report after that, and echo Councillor Drayton's comments on that one on 10.1. We now move on to 12.11 in public participation. We have Granville Taylor in relation to the budget review. The same as the other speakers, Mr. Taylor, you have 3 minutes, and then the question after that.
Thank you. And first of all, good evening, Mr. Mayor, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And for those who don't know me, I'm Granville Taylor. Tonight, I wish to address and make some comments on 12.11. And I should also say, before this new council started its term, I was granted the opportunity to talk with both the General Manager and the Mayor and senior staff about questions which some of the new councillors had asked me. And some of those questions, fortunately, have been addressed and answered to the satisfaction of those new councillors. I see on tonight's business paper there's still a question outstanding by Mr. Bowditch relating to legal fees over the past 5 or 6 years. And I'm sure that will be attended to in due course. Coming to 12.11, essentially what we're looking at here is the time when some liabilities and losses have arisen. And I think I should give assurance to new councillors that from my examination, a surface view, the unfavourable budget referral is not on their patch, not on their time. It hasn't arisen at any point during the new council's activities. You may have received more in the briefing tonight in terms of what has occurred, but really what we're looking at is a loss on sale of council's previous administration centre of 2.4 million or thereabouts, and legal liabilities of up to 2 million. And also a third item, which is doubtful debts, which may require a provision of $500,000 or thereabouts. Mr. Walsh and his staff have made some comments about how this could be improved on, and in fairness, the General Manager has made some further comments about essentially that there will be other factors which might improve on these losses and provisions. That really begs the question in my book, and I know we have a couple of accountants here at least, is a determination of when these losses and legal liabilities arose. As I said, to my knowledge, they haven't arisen in this council term, and they probably haven't arisen in the period of this accounting period being commencing on July the 1st, 2021. Therefore, it begs the question as to whether the annual financial statements for 2022 were in fact true and fair, whether those should be amended depending on the Auditor General, or whether they should be amended when we come to the June 2022 accounts. In particular, I think there are further questions. I did take the opportunity to have a look at Council's
title in respect of the admin centre.
3 minutes. Did you request? Would like to request a...
About 30 seconds, if that's possible.
Thank you.
One aspect that arose in a caveat, which gave the Richard Gill School a material advantage. One question that arose was that of a contract for sale, which dates back to 30th of June 2021. It therefore begs the question whether that loss, in fact, should have been mentioned already. I hope that's some benefit for councillors in further discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Any questions for Mr. Taylor at all from any councillors? Mr. Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. I was just wondering, would you be able to articulate that in a question to the General Manager?
In which particular part?
I guess the essence of what you're inquiring.
Yes, what I'm inquiring is the three items mentioned, which I think come to about $5 million, which is material, when those items arose, the actual timing of them, whether or not and when they were finally disclosed, which to my knowledge is in tonight's business paper. I think that's the real question at the heart of it. When did somebody first know of those losses and liabilities?
Thank you. I just thought
Again, I don't think you could you answer the councillor's question.
What I'm seeking on behalf of councillors is the actual time that anyone with responsibility in this council, when a responsible person on council first became aware, for example, of when was it known that there would be a loss on sale of the previous council centre.
Again, the councillor's question to you was, are you prepared to submit that informal to the General Manager so it can be addressed?
I thought that was being addressed now. I can write it down if you wish.
I think that's what he's asking.
Do you wish to see it written down?
I think it's probably best to have it in written form, unless the General Manager would like to respond verbally now.
Would like.
No, I won't be doing that. And I'm very happy to provide a detailed formal written reply. Just as council often has to write down certain assets, for example, our recent sewage treatment plant, that was a large write-off on our books over the last few years. It's not unusual for councils to have certain community assets which need to be written off. And I also have stated in that report, I have strong confidence in the financial health of Muswellbrook Shire Council. I don't believe there is any risk to the finances of council.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Any further questions from the council?
Can I just answer the General Manager's comments?
No, we can't. We don't actually have time for discussion. Sorry, Mr. Taylor. I will ask you to put it in writing.
And I would ask if this is a particular debate that we're engaging in at the moment.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask them if you could put it in writing, and we'll address it. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, that's the public, sorry about that. The public participation over and done with. There are no mayoral minutes. Any general business arising, even though I've asked?
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
It's still Mr. Weekins, I believe, on 10.2.
That's, I think, will he be taking public participation in relation to that? Is that to answer Mr. Weekins?
That's for the wild quarry, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you want me to plead my case now?
Yes, sorry, Mr. Thank you, Councillor Woodruff. I've got it down in a different line here. Mr. Ronald.
So I'll share my screen. Can everyone see my screen?
You've got 3 minutes.
Yep, because I only got 3 minutes. I've got probably need an hour, but anyway.
Workers, we've got a councillor conflicted. He's just leaving the room.
Sorry?
Sorry, we just had a councillor that is conflicted on this item. He's just leaving the room, so.
Do you want me to wait or?
At 10.2, if you wish to
I'll
speak
give
on
him
behalf of that right now for 3 minutes, the time is yours.
Okay, so with the Wild Quarry, we had major issues with sharing the access roads to the back. I've got nothing personally against Wild Quarry and doing his business, but I'm very concerned because he doesn't comply with any of the rules, and council do not chase this up, even though they say they'll do everything. I've never had a response from council for my complaints. And these are just a few of the items that I've summed up. Their traffic goes all the way to the rear of the property. Maintenance is only done at sections from the office to the top of the batching plant. Non-compliance of traffic. Not being able to stop in time due to unserviced roads. We have 20-ton trucks coming from batching plants on a wet service, unserviced road trying to stop. They need to give way. Dust is, the last 2 years we have no dust issues, of course, but unfortunately this is a 20-year contract. The width of the road is only suitable for one vehicle from the top of the property towards our property. There's no clear indication of right-of-ways and with very poor visibility. So trucks come screaming around the corner, there's no visibility. What will council do if there's a breach? For example, traffic, if there's a traffic breach, this has been reported on many occasions where council do nothing about this. Only a short distance of paved road from the first entrance for about 300 metres of the 1.3 kilometre route used by the quarry. Then we have materials, contaminated materials. Who's doing these inspections? Trucks, I deal with this on a daily basis as a project manager for transport. Trucks come in all the time. Who is the authorised person to inspect this? How is this monitored? Tonnage per year, they say a weighbridge, but who's monitoring that? Do we have to trust on his word? Does this account for batch concrete that comes from the actual batching plant when they bring it back, when they don't use that? There's no mention of that. How is the dust suppression managed during tipping and processing of these materials? No mention about this. What or how is illegal builder's waste, for example, asbestos, managed? Are the experts on site to determine that this is not suitable? What are they going to do with it again? Are they just going to chuck it back on the truck, what they said in their plans? We can't do that, of course. Is there any on-site management plan? And if they do have management plans, what the council keeps on mentioning about, why is this not submitted with the application? How do we know if there's an illegal dumping? Now, I can show you where illegal dumpings have happened, and I'm willing to pay for this to do core holes in the driveway where there's asbestos dumped. And I'm willing to take this to court and show you that there's asbestos underneath those driveways. All right, we all know his EPA history. It doesn't comply. Now, that's just a coincidence a few times that they picked up on this. Is council ordering this on a regular basis? And then we have the residents, just a few items. Yeah, just a few more items. We've been held to ransom a few times because they have their trucks blocked in our driveway, and the driveway is only 3 metres wide. So twice, 2 whole days, we've been held to ransom. All right, so these are just a few of the items that we have many discussions. Right, and this needs to be taken up for this consideration. As I said, I have no issues with him doing his business there, as long as it applies.
Thank you very much for your time there, and General Manager and I will discuss this tomorrow, and I'll also provide you my phone number afterwards and email contact to discuss.
And I was mentioned this before, I have no problem sharing it with council.
Rest assured we do have compliance officers that do look into these things, so thank you very much for again speaking on behalf of this item. I'll now just ask if you can put your microphone on mute and get Councillor Drayton back into the room so as we can move on. Thanks again, Councillor Woodruff, for bringing that up. I've got a different part of my sheet. There are no, sorry. Just note that Councillor Drayton returned to the room at 7 p.m. Which brings us to general business. There is none, I'm guessing. Business arising, any councillor? Okay, 10.1. The item before us is there, the Boarding House 41 Maitland Street. The officer's recommendation, council approves DA 2021/32 involving the construction of a 2-storey boarding house at Lot 8 DP 18699 41 Maitland Street, Muswellbrook, subject to the conditions in the attachment. Do I have someone to move the recommended motion? No? Do I have someone?
Well, look, I'd like to put forward a motion other than the motion in the business paper. After
You don't have to touch the only ones now.
after listening to everything tonight, I have some real concerns about certainly the size and bulk and scale of the building in the position it's in. Certainly, also some issues with parking. And I understand. Mr. Casson touched on it. I understand that the state government legislation covers the entire state, but you know, and I know there's some also some stuff in the legislation about how far you might be away from a railway line, etc. And the like. That's of course probably quite suitable when you're putting one of these buildings down in Manly or something like that in a heavily populated area. But certainly I have some concerns with the size. I especially have some concerns the fact that we have a speaker turn up tonight and say, and for whatever reason, I didn't ask him that, or maybe I should have, but that the P&C or the school right across the road haven't heard about it till 9:30 this morning. Here we are, 10 hours later, turning up representing. I guess how many kids are at that school, but a lot anyway, over 500. I understand. So I would like to put forward a motion for deferral. There's a number of questions. Certainly, councillors have asked a number of questions tonight. Lots of questions that couldn't be answered. I'm concerned about the questions that were asked that Mr. Name right? Gupta. Mr. Gupta says he's been talking to certain an organisation. I haven't seen details of any conversations about that organisation. The architect then speaks about possibly, certainly give me the impression that, and he was asked that question, that it might be some sort of different type of boarding, maybe for mine workers. So there's certainly lots and lots of questions outstanding. So I'd like to put forward a motion for deferral until the June meeting. And meanwhile, all the issues I've just raised and more, I would like to be certainly a meeting arranged and be addressed.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion from Councillor Drayton to defer this item, and seconded by Councillor Douglas. Sorry, I'll now commit that. Does anyone wish to speak to or against that motion?
Yeah, I'd like to speak for it. I have the same feelings as Councillor Drayton. I feel that there's too many people in close vicinity to the property that will be overlooked, and also the school is only 250 metres away, and also we have a motel across the road which has lots of people walking in and out, and I think that would be detrimental to their privacy as well.
All right, I'm now
just a point of order with regards to you asked a question. The next person to speak was if there was someone who wished to speak against the item.
To or against, sorry?
Yeah, that should be against by our own meeting processes. But anyway.
Seek clarification to that, but you can speak to it as well if you wish. But I can now commit that motion for the deferral to the June meeting. If all those in favour can raise a hand. And I declare that carried by 2 echo. Councillor and Councillor Bowditch. Thank you, Councillor Bowditch. I do echo what Councillor Drayton Douglas did raise as well. Thank you. Item 10.2. Just wait, we have a councillor conflicted on that item. Okay, it's the S4.55 modification, the modification to quarry and batching concrete facility to include a 30,000 tonne per annum construction and demolition waste recycling facility at 8440 New England Highway, Muswellbrook. Officer's recommendation that council grants development consent to the section 455(2) in brackets 2 modification of DA 2002-342 involving the addition of a 30,000 tonne per annum construction and demolition waste recycling facility to an approved quarry and concrete batching plant at lot 30D 815 308 840 8440 New England Highway Muswellbrook, subject to the conditions recommended in attachment A. Councillor Woodruff.
I have a question, Mr Mayor, if I may. Do we have some response to the comments that Mr Wakins made in regard to not being addressed by council?
I'll ask the General Manager if she can please answer that question through herself and staff.
Yes, I would refer that question to the Director for Environment and Planning, Sharon Pope.
Councillors, Mayor, Mr Mayor, the auditing of quarries and mines has recommenced. We employed a staff member in November last year, and she has been around to all the quarries in the Shire. She has identified a list of non-compliances, and she is chasing those up, including with this quarry, with some of their non-compliances. So we certainly are looking to ensure that they comply with their conditions of consent.
Thank you.
Mr Mayor?
Yes.
I would also like to greater clarification with regards to the obligations of right of way. I'm not confident I fully understand whose obligations extend to where, and with regards to the people that own the right of way and the people that use the right of way. And I'm wondering whether there are some assumptions on either one way or the other way with regards to these two people, the owners of the right of way or the users of the right of way, where there's a conflict that potentially is not a true conflict.
I'll pass that on to the General Manager and staff to clarify that for you.
Once again, I'll ask our Director of Environment and Planning.
Mr Mayor, councillors, my understanding is the land that everyone drives across is owned by the quarry, and that the other landowners benefit from the right of way. I am not familiar with the terms of the rights of way, but I do know that the conditions of approval for the quarry facility require the quarry operator to do various maintenance activities, and obviously those conditions don't require any maintenance requirements of the other people who are using the road. That's part of the private agreement between the quarry and those landowners who benefit from the right of way.
So I understand that what you're saying is if beyond what the quarry uses of the right of way, it's not the quarry's accountability for that right of way?
Mr Mayor, councillors, I can't remember the actual wording of the condition, but you are correct. There are certain nominated access points from the quarry activity and the batching plant where truck movements from that activity enter and exit the right of way, and that the maintenance responsibility relates to the areas that are used by the business. I'm, as I say, unfamiliar with the terms of the right of way, but I would expect that beyond the area that the business uses, that is some other arrangement between the quarry owner and those property owners that benefit from the right of way.
Can I just advise something on that, please?
No. Councillor Scholes? No. Okay. Councillor Douglas, you have a question?
No, I actually was going to put forward a motion.
Okay. We have a motion there. Sorry, Councillor.
I'd just like to say that in relation to the gentleman saying that the trucks turn right onto the highway, it's definitely right, because they are there before 7 o'clock, because I can pass my house before 7 o'clock, so they obviously are entering and leaving that property before the hours of 7 and 5.
Okay. Right, well, we have the motion put forward. Do you wish to move that motion, Councillor Douglas, or?
No, I want to put forward. want to put forward a motion that we defer this to the June meeting. I feel that there is some unanswered questions, and I'd actually like to know, with the last audit, with the things that were non-compliant at this quarry, whether they're going to be fixed before we approve any further development.
And I'll second that.
A point of order.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, you can't bring that into account. The DA is totally separate to what they have or haven't done under an existing DA. You can't.
I understand that, Councillor Woodruff. Thank you. I was just about to.
Thank you, I wasn't aware of that. So I would like to have it still put forward the motion that it's deferred to the next meeting so we can get some more clarification.
What further clarification on
the questions and the response to the that the gentleman was asking before, some of the questions that he raised, I'd like to seek further clarification on that.
On the right of way, etc.
Yes.
Well, I can make that motion for it to be deferred by Councillor Douglas. Anyone to second that?
Yep.
Councillor Marshall, I'll now ask if there's anyone to speak against or to the motion, and ask or commit it for the deferral. If everyone can raise their hand that is in favour of that.
Sorry, Rob.
Someone's going to have to give me, I can't turn my head, sorry, thank you. I declare that as carried. That will be deferred to the June 22 meeting. I'll ask if someone can please get Councillor Drayton. Which brings us to 10.3. While so I can get things moving, I'll just let, because I do realise there's other councillors conflicting with 10.3, get things rolling.
Mr. Mayor, do you want to let the public speakers on 10.1, if they wish to go home, they can?
Yes, sorry, thank you for your participation. You may leave if you wish, but feel free to hang around. No doubt it'll be entertaining. No, I think they'll go and leave. Okay, moving along so we can move things a little bit faster. 10.3, DA 2021-61, alterations in addition to commercial premises 4 Lawn Street, Muswellbrook. Officer's recommendation is the development application number 2021-61 for alterations in additions to the commercial premises at Lot A, DP 332469 4 Lawn Street, Muswellbrook be approved subject to the conditions in Appendix B of this report. Do I have someone to move this motion? Do I have anyone with an alternate motion? Councillors?
Happy to move the motion.
Happy to move the motion. Councillor Drayton, seconded by Councillor Leckey. Anyone speak to or against?
Let the twos go first.
No. No, he doesn't wish to speak to?
No, happy to report.
Happy to report. Anyone to speak against?
Yeah, as again, my problem with this particular site and its creeping DAs, this must be about the 4th or the 5th DA we've had for this particular site. It's changing the character of what's presented there. I have no problems with most of the applications things in their current DA, but I'm not happy about the enclosing of the front portal area.
All right, well, I commit that motion that has been put forward unless someone else wishes to speak to. So that motion from Councillor Drayton, seconded by, Councillor Leckey, put it forward. All those in favour, if you can raise a hand. So I note that we have Councillor Skulls against. And those against. So Councillor Skulls against. And Councillor, Marshall.
No, I was still up for it.
Yeah,
I was for it.
Councillor Dowdage, are you?
I can't tell,
Can I just commit that again? Those in favour, if you can raise your hand, please. And now those against, if you could raise your hand, please.
It's Bowditch and I.
Mark Bowditch and Councillor Sculls. Thank you. We'll get Councillor McNeil and Councillor Mahajan brought back in. Just moving on to 10.4. There's no one conflicted on that item.
Can I just, I'm conflicted there, Stephen.
Councillor Mahajan and Councillor McNeil returning at 7:15. 10.4, the DA for change of use to artisan. I'm sorry, I'm thrown off by councillor, by staff people who tag it on that one. Food and drink industry at Thomas Mitchell Drive, Muswellbrook. Officer's recommendation is the council grant development consent to DA 21-152 involving the change of use of lot 1001 DP 870109 Thomas Mitchell Drive, Muswellbrook to an artisan food and drink industry subject to the recommended conditions of consent in attachment B. Do I have someone?
I endorse the councillor's officer's recommendation.
Councillor Sculls, seconded by Councillor Drayton. I now ask if anyone wants to speak to or against. No one? Commit that motion. All those in favour, if you can raise a hand. Can anyone see Mark?
No, he's fine.
No, he's in. I've only got background.
So all those in favour, if you can raise a hand, just thanks. Thank you. That I declare that unanimous and remove that motion. DA 10.5. The DA for 221.
Excuse me, Steve. Call Mr. Bowditch back.
Sorry?
Yeah, Mr. Bowditch left because of his
conflicted.
He was conflict of interest, so he needs to be called back.
I'll leave that with the staff.
Councillor Bowditch back into the room through the phone.
We're going to have to get a breakout room with these new technology.
That's been done. He's been asked to come back.
DA 10.5 DA 2021 158 Chains of Use Healthcare Service 79 Brook Street, Muswellbrook. The recommendation council grant development consent to develop an application 2021 158 for the change of use of the building located at 79 Brook Street, Muswellbrook, lot 19 DP 701287 to a health service facility subject to conditions in attachment B. Do I have someone that wishes to move that motion?
Yeah, I'm happy to move that, Mr. Mayor, with the following amendment. The amendment being that condition 5.6, or condition 5 is removed, which consequently makes condition 6 and 22 not applicable, and that condition is for the construction of the footpath.
And I'll second that amendment.
And sorry, that was to the motion put forward from Councillor McNeil removing. Can you just clarify for that item number 5?
Removal of condition 5,
5,
6 and 22.
5, 6 and 22. On those merit, do I have someone to second that motion from Councillor McNeil?
Yes, I will second it, Darren Marshall.
Seconded by Councillor Marshall. Do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I would actually. The reason being, I think there's a real risk from the representative that spoke on behalf of the developer at last month's meeting, and that risk is that the development wouldn't proceed if that condition was present. I don't think we need to take that risk. I think it would be a fantastic addition if the footpath was constructed, no doubt about that. But I believe that the risk of losing the additional health services as a result is probably not worth it. We've previously made allowances or used our discretion for the non-compliance or the car parking spaces not being adequate prior to this application, and that is with the Supercheap Auto and the bowling alley on the basis of community best interest. And I think the additional services offered by this development fits that. Thank you.
Councillor, nice. Okay, to speak against, Councillor Woodruff.
Just a question if I could, Mr Mayor, and that is, do we have any indication that that's the case, that if they're made to construct a footpath that they won't go ahead with the DA?
I'll ask the General Manager to clarify that information.
Director of Environment and Planning.
Mr Mayor, councillors, at the previous meeting, representative for the applicant advised that construction of the footpath was financially a large impost for the applicant and that they may not proceed. But we have nothing formally in writing and it's not a planning consideration.
Do I have anyone else to speak against the item? So again, that amended.
Mr Mayor, I just have concerns with regards to if this is removed, the primary parking for this particular thing, if it's not using the handicap parking, is on Selby Street potentially, which has, because the entrance is towards the rear of the, up Selby Street way, and there's no the footpath doesn't cater for that access.
So are you foreshadowing a motion?
No, you have a motion from the councillor forward. If that gets defeated, I will actually propose a motion that we could go with the officer's recommendation.
So you're foreshadowing a motion based on that then?
Yes.
Okay, so we have the motion forward from Councillor McNeil in relation to removal of items 5, the conditions 5, 6 and 20. 22.
5, 6, 22, Appendix B.
Yep. And seconded by Councillor Marshall. I'll ask those in favour to raise their hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yes, yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And those against? 1, 2, 3,
6.
Okay, so the foreshadowed motion now stands to...
Yeah, I propose the motion that we accept the officer's recommendation.
Okay, then we're going to commit that to a vote. Seconded by Councillor Woodruff. Those in favour, if you can raise your hand. All those against? Okay, Councillors McNeil, Douglas, Mahajan, Marshall and Bowditch? Yes. Okay, I declare that the motion carried under the officer's recommendation. Community War on Waste 10.6. Councillor Dunn is removing herself from the room due to conflict of interest. I think it'll be a quick one. Council, the officer's recommendation on the Community War on Waste grants, the council approved the grants as recommended in table 1 of this report. Do I have someone to move? Councillor Wood.
I propose the council's recommendation.
Councillor
Leakey.
Second. Anyone wish to speak to or against? Commit that motion. All those in favour raise a hand. Declare that unanimous. And I ask Councillor if you can please bring Councillor Dunn back in. Is she coming back in? Oh, okay. We'll just have to wait till. Okay, 10.7. We can proceed. 10.7, monthly report to council, planning, environment and regulatory services. Officer's recommendation is the information contained in this report be noted. Do I have someone to move that?
Yep, I'll move
Councillor Marshall.
I'll move that.
Seconded by
Yep, I'll
Councillor
second that.
Sculls. Anyone to... Well, I did say that, but I was advised otherwise, so...
No, we can continue.
do that again. Sorry, councillors. Those in favour, if you could please raise your hand. Declare that unanimous. Community infrastructure 11.1. Concept design for Rosebrook Bridge. Officer's recommendation. Council endorses the concept design attached as A to the report for the replacement of Rosebrook Bridge on Wyvong Road.
I'll support it and commend the report.
Moved by Councillor Sculls, seconded by Councillor Woodruff. Anyone to speak to or against? No. I put that motion forward. All those in favour raise your hand. Declare that unanimous and that motion moved. Uh, 11.2 Water Street Road Design Concept. The account officer's recommendation is there, endorses the concept design attached as A to the report for the rehabilitation of Water Street, Muswellbrook between New England Highway and Muscle Creek Bridge approaches, and 2, approves financial savings from the Muscle Creek Bridge and road approaches construction project estimated to be $300,000 to be carried forward to 2022-2023 under the Urban Road Renewal Program, ledger that's written there in front of us, for the carry out of part of the endorsed Wilder Street upgrade works, including construction of a concrete path and tree planting.
Again, I support this. I've been involved with the Wilder Street community all the way along, and we made all the promises with regards to this drainage and footpath and all the rest of it. I fully endorse it.
Councillor Sculls moves that motion, seconded by Councillor Lecky. Sorry, Councillor Barry, you're going to have to push that button on that microphone. Anyone to speak to or against? I now commit that as a motion. Those in favour, if you can please raise your hand. Declare that motion carried and unanimous. Is this probably going to 11.3 or is it a supplementary document? Is there no to that one? No?
It's 11.3.
11.3, is it?
Concept is not going to be 11.3.
Just 2 seconds. I'll get the supplementary item up. 11. Is it?
No, it's not supplementary.
No, sorry. 11.3, the concept design for renewal Hill Street car park. Officer's recommendation. Council endorses the concept design attached to it as A to the report for the renewal of Hill Street car park identified in the report. The use of the available budget from the 2021-2022 capital budget allocation for the construction of the works up to the limit of funding available in accordance with the endorsed concept plan. And 3, approves the consolidation of 3,058 from the general ledger as in front of us to general ledger as in front of us to facilitate the carry out of the approved works. Do I have someone to move that motion? Councillor Woodruff, Councillor Lecky, seconded. Can anyone to speak to or against that item? I'll commit that as a motion. All those in favour, if you could please raise a hand. Declare that unanimous and that motion carried. 11.4. Okay. 11.4, the waste service extension. Officer's recommendation. Council endorses option 2 in order to progress the potential for a staged extension of Council's curbside waste service. 2, request that staff provide further investigation and information in relation to option 3. 3, request that staff formally confirm with Council's waste collection services provided to ascertain the timeframes regarding procurement of heavy vehicles. 4, approve staff to commence consultation with affected landowners regarding extending the waste services to new areas. 5, indicates to landowners that more than 50% of the ratepayers in the proposed extension area would need to support the proposal before a waste service extension may be considered. And 6, request the results of the consultation be reported to Council for a decision on the waste service extension. Do I have someone to move that one?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'm happy to move that. It's good to see that the community scavenging area has been increased in consultation with the public.
Thank you, Councillor Woodruff. That's moved by Councillor Woodruff. Do I have a second?
Councillor Bowditch, just seconding.
Councillor Bowditch, thank you for pointing that out. Anyone to speak to or against? I now commit that as a motion. All those in favour, you can raise a hand. Declare that unanimous and that motion carried. Item 11.5, draft plans of management for Olympic Park and Denman Recreation Area. Officer's recommendation, Council endorses the draft plans of management for Olympic Park and Denman Recreational Area for consultation with user groups and key stakeholders. Do I have someone here from Councillor Woodruff, Councillor Gill? Anyone to speak to or against? I commit that motion. All those in favour, if you could please raise a hand. Declare that unanimous and that motion carried. 11.6.
I'm conflicted, Stephen.
Okay. So Councillor Bowditch has left the room, Councillor Marshall, Councillor Douglas. This item is in relation to the Section 130 Malabar Resources Section 138 Roads Act 1993 permit, Thomas Mitchell Drive. Officer's recommendation, Council delegates to the General Manager authority to sign the Section 138 Roads Act 1993 approval for the proposed works as outlined in the report.
So moved.
So moved by Councillor Sculls, seconded by Councillor Woodruff. Anyone wish to speak to or against? All those in favour, if you could please raise a hand. Declare that unanimous. Councillors, just if you can just highlight to them that it's 11.7. I think there was Councillor conflicted in regards to Mangoola, which was Councillor Woodruff. The other councillors are in. Is Councillor Bowditch in for that one? Yes. 11.7 Mangoola Coal Operations Section 138 Roads Act 1993 permit for the carrying out road maintenance on Waibong Road. Officer's recommendation is the Council delegates to the General Manager authority to sign the S138 Roads Act 1993 permit for ongoing maintenance of identified Council road sections as detailed in the report. Do I have someone to remove that? Councillor Douglas and Councillor Leckie. Anyone to speak to or against? I'll commit that motion. All those in favour, if you can raise a hand. Declare that unanimous. Someone please get Councillor Woodruff. 11.8. Officer's recommendation in regards to the major project status report. The information contained in this report be noted. Do I have so moved by Councillor Sculls. Yes. Seconded by Councillor Drayton. Anyone to speak to or against? I'll commit that motion. All those in favour, raise your hand. Now I know who would be moving this second one. 11.9, the Denman Netball Court's proposed location. Officer's recommendation, Council approves progressing a design for 2 netball courts at the location 1 identified in the report, subject to consultation at the next Denman Recreational Area User Group meeting. Do I have someone to move that motion? Councillor Woodruff. Someone to second it? Councillor Barry. Anyone wish to speak to it? Councillor Woodruff, do you want to?
No, I look forward to it, Mr Mayor. It's been a long time coming, and the planning's been many years, so we'll look forward to it being located and eventually being constructed. And I want to send a bouquet to the staff too, because there's been a lot of work done in this over the years, and the consultation with the public's been great. So thank you.
I can't wait to see you shooting some hoops up there.
No, they'll go in, but
okay, I commit that motion. All those in favour, if you could raise a hand. Declare that unanimous and that motion carried. 11.10, natural disaster assistance for repair of essential public assets. Officer's recommendation, Council approves the addition of a budget allocation to enable the carry out of works upon confirmation of funding under the Natural Disaster Essential Public Asset Restoration Program. So, Councillor Sculls, Councillor Woodruff, anyone wish to speak to or against? So all those in favour, raise a hand. So I declare that unanimous and that motion moved. Is it, about 12.1 now?
Yes, 12.1.
Yeah, 12.1. The corporate, under corporate and community services, 2022-2023 budget estimates public exhibition. Officer's recommendation is council resolved to place the 2022-23 budget estimates on public exhibition for a period of 28 days. Councillor Scholes, Councillor Woodruff. All those in favour, if you could please raise a hand. All those against, obviously it's unanimous. Declare that motion carried and moved. Public exhibition of the draft 2022 operational plan, officer's recommendation. Of course, the council endorses the draft 2022-2023 operational plan for public exhibition for a period of at least 28 days with details of all public submissions received by close of the exhibition period reported to council for consideration. Councillor Woodruff, Councillor McNeil, second. All those in favour, if you could please raise a hand. Declare that motion carried. 12.3, the 2022-2023 revenue policy update, officer's recommendation. Council resolves to place the 2022-2023 revenue policy on public exhibition for a period of 28 days. Have someone to move that motion? Councillor Leckey, Councillor Douglas. I'll now put that motion forward. All those in favour, raise a hand. Declare that unanimous and moved. Fees. 12.4, fees and charges 2022-2023. Officer's recommendation, fees and charges for the 2022-2023 financial year in accordance with the attached 2022-2023 fees and charges report be placed on public exhibition for a period of 28 days. Councillor Woodruff, Councillor Barry. Does anyone wish to speak to this?
I'll support it, but I would also like to flag that at some time our water charges and waste charges in no way really reflect the costs to us. We at some stage can ramp up those rates, and I think it's time we start the process of communicating that to the community.
Thank you, Councillor Scholes. I'll now commit that motion. All those in favour, if you please raise your hand. Declare that motion moved and carried. 12.5, endorsement, Muswellbrook Shire 2022 to 2032 Community Strategic Plan. Officer's recommendation that council endorses the 2022-2032 Muswellbrook Shire Community Strategic Plan. Moved by Councillor Leckey, seconded by Councillor Douglas. Anyone wishing to speak to or against this item? Now commit that motion. All those in favour, please raise a hand. Declare that unanimous. And that motion carried. 12.6, 2022 Model Code of Meeting Practice. Officer's recommendation that council adopts the 2022 Model Code of Meeting Practice, including the non-mandatory provisions that allow for councillors' attendance at council meetings via audio-visual link beyond June 30, 2022. Councillor Woodruff.
Yeah, second that. I'm not waiting for Councillor Scholes.
Councillor Drayton. All those in favour, raise a hand. Yep, I declare that unanimous and that motion carried. 12.7, operational plan 31st of March quarterly review. Officer's recommendation that the 2021-2022 operational plan review dated 31st of March 2022 be noted. Moved by Councillor McNeil, seconded by Councillor Barry. I'll commit that motion. All those in favour? Voted unanimous and carried. Okay. Additional members for the Finance Advisory Committee. Councillors, I'll ask you to nominate yourselves, but officers' recommendation, council nominates 2 additional councillors to join the Finance Review and Advisory Committee. Does anyone wish to nominate?
Nominate Councillor Dunn.
Councillor Dunn.
Councillor
Leckey. Councillor Leckey. Does anyone, and Councillor Barry. So we've got Councillor Dunn, Councillor Barry, Councillor Leckey.
I'm happy to move, Mr Mayor, that all 3 be included.
Okay, thank you, councillor Woodruff.
I'll second councillor Woodruff's amendment.
We'll make the amendment, so that now makes it council nominates 3 additional councillors to the Joint Finance Review and Advisory Committee, which consists of now also councillor Dunn, councillor Barry and councillor Leckie. That's been committed as a motion. All those in favour, if you could raise a hand. Declare that unanimous, and that motion carried. Related party 12.9, the related party disclosures policy. Officer's recommendation, the draft related party disclosures policy be adopted. All, do I have someone to move that?
Yep.
Councillor Marshall, second councillor Woodruff. Sorry. I've got to get used to using the microphones. I know, Rod, and you're doing well, but what are you going to have to hit that button? I now commit that motion. All those in favour, if you could raise your hand. Declare that motion unanimous and carried. 12.10, store and material stock take 9th of May 2022. Officer's recommendation, council notes the report on the stock take carried on 9th of May 2022 and that the amount $618.69 be deducted from the inventory registry.
I'll move that, Mr Mayor, and also I'll note that that's pretty good for an organisation our size, so we'll pass on that. Thanks to whoever's involved with that, please.
We'll make that note, and thank you, councillor Woodruff. Do we have someone to second that motion? Councillor Marshall, put out the buttons.
I did, I pushed it.
Yep. All right, I'll now commit that motion. All those in favour, if you please raise a hand. Declare that unanimous and carried. 12.11, quarterly budget review, March 2022, officer's recommendation. Councillor note the quarterly budget review for March 2022.
I'll second.
Moved by councillor Sculls. Councillor Mahajan seconds. Do we have anyone to speak to or against? Declare that, commit that motion. All those in favour raise a hand. Declare that motion carried. Follow up as per earlier discussion for those in the gallery. Reports on investment held at 31st of March 2022, item 12.12. Officer's recommendation, the information showing council's investments as at 31st of March 2022 be noted. Do I have someone to move that motion?
Yeah, I'll move that way, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Woodruff. Seconded by councillor Mahajan. I now commit that. If anyone wants to speak to or against, raise a hand. If you're for, yes. Declare that unanimous. April 2022 monthly financial reports. Officer's recommendation, the financial reports for the month ending 30th of April 2022 be noted. Do I have someone to move that way? You just have to push the button, Councillor Leckie, sorry. You want to move that forward. Councillor Leckie, seconded by Councillor Marshall. Anyone to speak to or against? Commit that motion. All those in favour? Declare that unanimous, and that motion will be carried. 12.13, was it? 12.14, my apologies. March 2022 monthly financial reports. Officer's recommendation that financial reports for the month ending 31st of March 2022 be noted. Do I have someone to move? Councillor Marshall, Councillor Mahajan. Anyone speak to or against that? Commit that motion. All those in favour? All those against? No, you can declare that unanimous. Sorry. And that motion moved and carried. So we have now the supplementary items that I've been waiting for. The endorsement of the Muswell Shire 2022-2032 Community Strategic Plan. Sorry,
12.14, 12.15.
12.15.
My apologies. I'm looking for the supplementary items so I don't miss them. 12.15, officers' reports on investments held as of as at 30th of April 2022. Officer's recommendation, the information showing council's investment as at 30th of April 2022 be noted. Do I have someone to Councillor Lecky and Councillor Marshall? Anyone wish to speak to or against? All those in favour, if you can please raise a hand. I declare that unanimous and carried. (12.16) Council information communication technology upgrade. I think this is one that is much needed. Officer's recommendation. 1. Council endorses a temporary reallocation of $450,000 for the waste reserve to the general fund for the purpose of funding the upgrade of Council's information communication technology as outlined in this report.
Happy to move that.
The waste reserve to be repaid in full no later than 3 years from the date of the reallocation. Moved by Councillor Drayton. I knew everyone would jump in.
I'll second it. I'll come in.
Everyone second.
I agree. It's great that we're going to fix up the IT. It's been not much love for many years, but again, I do not like this robbing Peter to pay Paul. I do like the change now that there's actually a 3-year limit placed on it, but it's a habit we've got to stop.
I agree, but we did rob from the ICT initially that was planned to be implemented, so this is putting back council's goals, and I think that, as we all recognise, our IT needs to be fully fixed and centralised. So that was moved by, Councillor Drayton, seconded by Councillor Sculls. I commit that motion. All those in favour, raise a hand. Declare that unanimous and carried. 12.17. Sorry. The ADAPT project, officers' recommendations. The council recognises that the ADAPT project. Sorry, thank you very much. Ms. Spear. Okay. Take 2. 12.17, and I just note that Councillor Lecky has left the room at 7:47. Officer's recommendation. Council recognises that ADAPT project has merit, but due to the level of the government funding required to deliver the project, does not see the project as a high priority for the Muswellbrook Shire. Do I have anyone?
Yeah, I'd like to move an alternate motion.
Okay, Councillor McMillan, if you wish to.
Can we, you've moved the motion forward, I think we've got to address that first.
I can move. Can I move the motion with an amendment?
No, you can move an amendment to the motion.
Okay. Keep your head away from the mic. Yeah.
That's what I did before, I wasn't pulled up.
Councillor McNeil.
Yeah, I'd like to move the motion that council supports the ADAPT project and recognises its benefit to the community. Council does not, however, necessarily consider that the project as having more merit than other listed council projects.
Am I allowed to second that?
Just waiting to see that worded up. Apologies, if you can just go over that again, Councillor McNeil.
Council supports the ADAPT project and recognise its benefit to the community. Full stop. Council does not, however, necessarily consider the project as having more merit than other listed council projects.
Okay, does anyone wish to second that motion submitted by Councillor?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Douglas. Do I have anyone to speak to or against that motion? Nothing further? Council support that the ADAPT project Council supports the DAP project and recognises its importance to the community. However, it does not, was the next part, sorry, does not
necessarily consider it should have more merit than other listed council projects. Or remove the word listed because there's nothing listed. Thank you.
So we have that motion put forward from Councillor McNeil and seconded by Councillor Douglas. Those in favour, if you could raise a hand.
Do we get to speak for it?
Did you get to, I did ask, sorry.
Oh, look, you got distracted.
Sorry, okay.
Look, I've been on the council for 10 years and never have I seen a group of influential community members or partners come together for a project that has obvious benefits. Sorry about that. For me, it satisfies what we've been trying to achieve on council for the time that I've been on council, and that is provide a destination, livability, and identity, and employment opportunities. The business case, which was presented to us at a workshop recently, showed that it'll turn a return in 12 months, or turn a profit in 12 months, which is extraordinary. And we have no resources being drawn from council to achieve all these things that we've been trying to achieve. I think it would be an absolute travesty if council didn't support this project. However, with my motion, I think it provides an avenue for council not to necessarily to support it above other projects that council has been formulating and have obviously got on their agenda. Thank you.
Does anyone wish to speak? Dee, would you like to?
Yeah, look, I'd just like to agree with what was said. It's amazing what's been put forward, and I understand that, you know, as a council we have our own projects that we would like to see funded, but I'm all for supporting whatever it takes to make our town be what we've all wanted it to be for a long time.
I'll speak against slightly if you like, Mr. Mayor. I think we're arguing about words, but I think council laws as a whole, I think that is a great idea and it'd be great to go ahead, but our concern is that we hurt ourselves with regards to where we will end up in conflict with the government, and the message I think our motion has to convey to those government, both federal and state, that we're not endorsing it to the preclusion of other things, and it's the wording that I'm concerned about.
Thank you, Councillor Scholes.
Yeah, if I can, I guess I agree in part with Councillor Scholes. It's the wording. I don't agree with it. It is. I think we're all, as you said, we're all on the same page. But it is. The wording is a bit. I think we just open ourselves up, frankly. It's pretty subjective whether someone thinks the ADAPT project is better than one of the current projects. I mean, ultimately, what we want to do is just finish what we started first, and not be in conflict. I'm not sure that to say that one project has more merit than another project is the right way to go about it. I mean, I think it purely was a matter of, as the council put, We'll just prioritise it. We just want to prioritise the ones we've got. It wasn't about what was the most meritorious project. It's depending on who you talk to, will tell you what the most meritorious project is. I just think we just, as I say, it was more a priority than a merit-based issue.
Councillor McNeil, to reply.
I think my motion says exactly what Councillor Scholes and Councillor Drayton have just said.
I'll just step in there.
Yeah,
I think we're getting caught up on the wording. And
yeah, I think it's a word issue right here.
Yeah, so look, we'll commit the motion that Councillor McNeil and Councillor Douglas have put forward as the new amended version. So all those in favour of that motion, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 5. And all those against? So that brings us back to the foreshadow mode.
Can I, Mr. Mayor, can I? Gus, I'll be there.
If you don't speak, if you speak across it.
With the council's recommendation, I think we just need to change a few words within it to feel the structure. Council recognises that the ad program has a merit, but due to the level of government funding requires to deliver the project does not see as the highest priority for Muswellbrook Shire Council. It's council as an entity for a start. And I don't think I've got the wording perfect either, by the way, but I think that's better than.
I think that as it sits,
well, as a limit, I would suggest it should have Muswellbrook Shire Council.
Add the word council to the back end of that.
Because I think, I agree, the depth is a great idea.
I don't disagree. I think that is a great idea. We just need to make it very clear on the wording is the situation.
I haven't been dealing with the governments in the last couple of weeks, as you have an understanding where they're approaching.
Sorry, I missed that last part.
And I don't fully understand their reaction to your approaches with the election, so I don't have a feel for that.
Okay, so that motion now is the staff recommendation 12.17. Council recognises that the ADAPT project has merit, but due to the level of government funding required to deliver the project does not see the project as a high priority for the Muswellbrook Shire Council.
I'd like to move an amendment to that. I'd like to have the words, can you bring it back up, please? Does not necessarily consider it. Oh, sorry, I was looking at the motion here which says it's not a high priority. That's been removed, has it?
Yes, that has been removed. Yes, that has been removed. That motion was.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
So we're back to the original motion now.
The original motion states the project is not seen as a high priority.
It does not see the project as a high priority for the Muswellbrook Shire Council. It's saying that we support it in merit.
Yeah, that's so I'd like to move the motion.
Amendment.
I move the amendment that it's not considered as a high priority to be removed. Because I think what you just said, it is a high priority. So it doesn't meet with the sentiment of the council.
Okay. So just to be clarified, I need you to clarify that for me, Councillor McNeil.
Okay. Speak across it.
If you speak across it, not directly into it, it works.
Okay, so the motion is as written. It says council recognises that the ADAPT project has merit, but due to the level of government funding required to deliver the project, does not see the project as a high priority.
For the Muswellbrook Shire Council?
Yeah, for Muswellbrook Shire Council. I would like to see that an alternate words which says level of government funding required to deliver the project.
It is basically saying we're supporting it. It's just saying that when we prioritise grants, etc., that we're funding the projects under the council's list, so we are supporting it.
Maybe the word that said has concerns around the level of government funding.
Sorry, what about if we just put, on what Councillor Skull said, and I'll read from halfway through it, the project does not see the project as the highest priority for Muswellbrook Shire Council at this time. Because isn't that the case?
However,
not saying down the track, I think it might sort themselves out and that might become something we won't.
I'll accept Councillor Drayton's modifications tomorrow.
Councillor McNeil, are you happy with that one?
Can we get it up so we can read?
I'll just, whilst it's being typed up, it's just the back end of it, of the recommendation we have there. It says council at this time, so it's council recognises
the highest priority for Muswellbrook Shire Council at this time.
So council recognises that the ADAPT project has merit, but due to the level of government funding required to deliver the project, does not see the project as the highest priority for the Muswellbrook Shire Council at this time. So
that's an improvement.
That's an improvement. All right, I commit that motion from Councillor Drayton, and does someone wish to second?
Councillor Drayton modified my thing. I accepted his modification as my motion, so therefore that's the motion.
Okay, so
Councillor Drayton is the seconder.
Okay, Councillor, moved by Councillor Sculls, seconded by Councillor Drayton. Anyone to speak to or against that wording of the motion?
Just a comment. I would like to say that there was nothing wrong with the motion to start with. There's nothing in that motion to say that we're not going to support it, that we're not going to support it down the track.
Okay.
That's exactly what the new motion says.
I will commit that motion. All those in favour, please raise a hand. All those against? Councillor Marshall, Councillor Douglas. Okay. 12.18, you threw that one. Could please someone get Councillor Lecky?
She would love to have that.
12.18. We went in a roundabout way, but we eventually got there to what?
I still good enough. See, we've got rid of it's not a high priority. That's
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Lecky. 12.18. Report on council grant funding and community engagement. Officers' recommendation. Council note the information contained in this report. Do I have someone to move that motion? Councillor Barry. Councillor Woodruff. Don't forget to push, please, people. All those in favour, please raise a hand. All those against? No, that was unanimous. Declare that motion passed and carried. To community services, 12.19. Officers' recommendation, the information contained in this report be noted.
So moved.
So moved by Councillor Sculls. Councillor Marshall seconded. All those in favour, please raise a hand. Declare that unanimous. Just mindful of the time, and we might not get through it the way we're going. Sponsorship request. Muswellbrook Race Club Officers' recommendation. Council sponsored the Muswellbrook Race Club for $10,000 in 2022. Sorry, Rod, this is Councillor Sculls, I apologise. I'm trying to mindful that by 9 o'clock we're over with, aren't we? So yes, there's a fair bit to get through. Okay, sponsorship request. Muswellbrook Race Club Officers' recommendation. Council sponsors the Muswellbrook Race Club for $10,000 in 2022-2023 and 2023-2024 for the Muswellbrook Cup, that needs to say. Do I have someone to move that motion?
Yes.
Councillor Drayton, seconded Councillor Dunn. All those in favour, please raise a hand. Okay, I declare that motion carried and moved. Councillor Spells coming back in. 805. Finance Review and Advisory Committee 11th to the 5th 2022 Officers' Recommendation of minutes for the Finance Review and Advisory Committee meeting held on the Wednesday the 11th of May 2022 be noted. Do I have someone to move that? No, Councillor Mahajan, Councillor Marshall second. All those in favour, if you could please raise your hand. Declare that unanimous, declare that carried. Okay, item 14, notice of motion. We have a notice of motion here from Councillor Bowditch regarding the legal fee expenditure 2016 to 2022. A motion A, I request a report for June 2022 council meeting, a breakdown of annual expenditure on all legal fees for the financial years commencing 2016 to date. B, a second report be tabled for councillors for closed council outlining what the fees for legal matters were related to. Do I have Councillor Bowditch, do you wish to obviously move that? Anyone to second? Councillor Marshall? Anyone to speak to or against it? Councillor Bowditch first. So, Councillor Bowditch.
It's just questions I've been asked and things I can't answer. So I've asked them in a council meeting, so we can get clarification on things as I want to find out where some answers that we need to where our funding's going. That's all.
Okay. Sorry, who's second that over this slide? Councillor Marshall, do you wish to speak to it? Speak.
Yeah, a question for Councillor Bowditch, I guess, in relation. Councillor Bowditch, this period is a period that you sat on council, I think, for the entire time. Are you saying that, well, obviously your question is saying that you don't know what the expenditure is, and even particular expenditure. Are you saying that you've never had a report? You've never had a report given to council about legal expenditure? During, what's the period, 6 years? Oh, let's not count this year because we only just started. So in 5 years you sat on council the whole time. Are you saying you've never had a report on any of those legal fees at all? The reason, sorry, and I'll just clarify, the reason I asked the question is we're about to speak actually about staff matters and particularly staffing matters. I mean, some of these things take hours and hours and hours of staff time to do, and we're also putting pressure on staff to do stuff that, you know, I see is relevant right now. It needs nothing to do today. So I'm just, my question, my original question, mate, is have you never been given a report in the entire time you've sat on council?
Not for what the expenditures are for, no. Direct one.
Okay. So he said not for what the total expenditure, but not for what the total expenditures were. Is that correct, what Mark? Councillor Bowditch?
Yes, correct. Yep.
Oh, just quickly, so you've been given each expenditure, you just said you haven't added them together though over that time.
What was that?
You've been given each expenditure, but you're saying you want to know the total amount. You want them to add it together for you, effectively.
I want to know what the total amount is and what they were for.
Okay.
Okay, so that motion was moved by Councillor Bowditch, seconded by Councillor Marshall. Just commit that now as a motion. All those in favour, raise a hand. 1, 2, 3. All those against, Councillor Drayton and Councillor Woodruff, Councillor Scholes. Declare that motion carried. Notice of motion.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Normally, if we're going to issue a report, it's something to do with your duty as a councillor. I don't understand what these financial matters have as a duty as a councillor when we have a report of each of these items when they're presented, and what is the difference between a total amount and the amounts that were presented to council over that time, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, the item's been put before us and voted. I believe that it's, if I'm looking at this, Councillor Bowditch is seeking clarification on the overall total of where expenditures have been spent on legals.
Supporting Councillor Woodruff, but what is they going to tell you when each item as it came up for a particular legal matter, it was identified whether it was appropriate or not? A total report is not going to provide you with that information.
Well, for closed item, look, we've...
Order, Mr Mayor, the questions should come prior to the motion being, or the resolution.
Yes, we'll move on to notice 14.2, notice motion staffing numbers 2016 to 2022. The motion, I request a report for the June 2022 council meeting specifying the staffing numbers in all departments, both current and departments no longer active from the calendar year beginning 2016 and compared to the numbers as of January 2022. Do you wish to speak to that, Councillor Bowditch, as to that motion?
I just want to know the differences as from when we started council to the staffing numbers we had when I first joined council to what our staffing numbers are now in the areas to date. That's all.
On to question. Again, what that's going to tell you, the numbers are the numbers, what the roles are, role descriptions, what is the what do the numbers actually tell you?
Well,
it tells me the areas that we need to improve for staffing matters, such as IT, road crews, and building those up. So, yep.
Your question doesn't ask that.
Again, Councillor Bowditch, I'm just concerned going back to seeing how many people we had in Parks and Gardens in 2016 and sending staff to do that for hours and hours of work. What it's going to do now, shouldn't we just be looking at what we've got now and what we need and then deciding what we need? I mean, here we are talking about staffing numbers. It's ironic, isn't it? We talk about staffing numbers and then go and send staff on weeks and weeks of work to find out what they were 5 years ago. I just don't see I don't see what benefit it's going to be to this council. It's certainly not going to be any benefit to me as a councillor to know how many you had in Parks and Gardens in 2016. I don't know how many you got to. I don't know how many you got. I don't know how many you got today and whether they can do the job or not.
Yeah, that's exactly the reason why I want to know.
Question.
Sorry, Councillor.
Question of the General Manager. How much work would be involved in correlating that information?
We would draw this data directly from our particular databases. So there may be some gaps. We do collect data that we report through to what's called the Performance Excellence Program. We have been participating in that for some years, so we collect and compare our staffing numbers with other local governments as part of that program. We didn't have accurate data in 2016, so that might take some more time, but we are capable of putting together data on our staffing numbers.
Okay.
Can I just quickly have one question on just to clarify? But you don't just need staffing numbers, don't you need contractors, you need people who are on casual employment, you need, to give you any real indication how many people you have doing the job, you're going to need all of that.
With respect, Councillor, that's not the question, so I wouldn't be including contractors.
Okay, so what's this information going to tell us? Thank you, you answered my question.
Okay, we commit the motion of staffing numbers as per the 14.
Secondary.
Sorry?
Haven't got a secondary.
Someone to second that motion of Councillor Bowditch. Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, just so.
Okay, 14.2, so that's Councillor Marshall seconded, Councillor Bowditch moved. All those in favour, if you can please raise a hand.
Speakers for and against?
We just had the four. Okay, do you wish to speak against or do you wish to speak for?
I believe that the information could be valuable in terms of setting up some trends and identifying any areas where we have staff shortages and which would lead us to ask questions and look at why that may be the case.
Okay, so we've got that motion. I'm just going to commit the motion now because we are running short of time. Those in favour, please raise a hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Behind you too.
And Babbage. Those against? Councillor Drayton, Woodruff, Skulls and Barry. And
it's 5.
Douglas. Okay. Note 14.3, notice of motion, council services policy. Council expedite the council services policy which is to be undertaken with the community consultative panel so as to effectively commence our service levels for the required areas, i.e. mowing roads, etc., and increase our presentation, and so as the council and community has formalised base of the areas prioritised and reoccurrences of maintenance. And B, the community panel be selected and meet for the first time before 15th of June 2022 to commence this process. I think before I commit this motion, I can just speak to this, that we're going out now to the representatives, send out emails to clarify, and it's a time frame thing. So Councillor Bowditch, if you still wish to proceed with that, that's fine, but it's still going to take that period of time for us to get a feedback from those people on that panel if they still wish to be involved.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Still commit that motion?
Yes, please. Still commit.
Okay, 14.3.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Marshall. Anyone wish to speak to or against this motion? All those in favour, if you can raise a hand. Councillor Marshall, Councillor Mahajan, Councillor Douglas and Lecky. All those and all those against? We're nearly at that point of happening, so declare that motion defeated. So you can be encouraged that things are happening in that space very quickly. We've been moving along with it more recent in the last week. Notice of motion 14.4, the Gallery Cafe. Motion, council seeks tenders of expression of interest for the lease and management of the current Gallery Cafe by external operators to council's existing function. Councillor Bowditch, once again, do you wish to speak to this?
I just want to see if there's anyone out there why we're running it, and I just want to see if there's ways that we can do things when it's not our forte what we do.
Does anyone wish to second that motion?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Marshall. Do you wish to speak to that?
No.
Okay. Anyone wish to speak against?
Can I just have a question?
Yes.
Why is it not what we do?
Sorry, to Councillor Bowditch, yes. Councillor Bowditch, the question from Councillor Woodruff, why is it not what we do?
We're elected by the community for the community to do our community works. I'm just wondering why we're gone into hospitality to, that's all, and what the cost is to the council.
That's not what the question is.
Do you want to clarify? Do you want clarification of that, Councillor Woodruff? Sorry.
Well, Mr. Mayor, that's not what the motion says. And then Councillor Bowditch worded that's not what we do, but I would counter that and say that we've been in the hospitality industry through swimming pools for over 50 years.
So can you clarify that, Councillor Bowditch, that is the Mersey Council seeks tenders of expression of interest for the lease and management of the current Gallery Cafe by external operators to council's existing functions? to council's existing function. Is that in relation to Councillor Woodruff's question? Can you expand on it, please?
I just want to, see what what our expenditure is and to what it would cost us to what a contractor would cost to run a gallery. But yes.
Any other people to speak at all?
Yeah, just one. Didn't we already try this? Didn't we already put out the tender and have someone tender and work out that they couldn't run it? I thought council, when it first opened, I mean, there isn't an art gallery, and this is exactly what we do. I mean, if we have if this council's view is going to be that we shouldn't run anything that we can't run, or we run it at a loss, we better shut those swimming pools and the gym and everything else, because there's plenty of stuff council run at a loss. In fact, it's lots and lots of stuff we do, and I would hesitate to ever say that anything wasn't our job, like you were doing lately. But anything that wasn't our job, because that stuff, if it's to do with the community, my view is that that's exactly what our job is. But I thought we'd already been down this road of asking, putting it out for tender, and I'm hesitant to say it failed, but it's certainly not there now. And I'm just concerned that we do this again, what are we going to do? End up with no cafe there. The criticism will be much, much greater of us, I can tell you.
I believe that there's more when we speak in closed council in relation to it from our finance committee. If I can just say that. Councillor Marshall.
I'd just like to say, in reference to what Councillor Drayton said, there are 5 other cafes within 500 metres or 400 metres of that cafe.
Okay, well, before we get into any more further debate, the motion's there. We're getting a bit late on with time. I'm going to commit the motion. Council seeks tenders of expression of interest for the lease and management of the current gallery cafe by external operators to council's existing function. We've got a mover by Councillor Bowditch and Councillor Marshall. I now commit that motion. All those in favour, if you could please raise a hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those against? Councillor Sculls, Councillor Barry, Councillor Woodruff, Drayton and Dunn. Declare that motion carried. And so we're going to have to probably not even get into the closed items at the moment. Yes, that's carried. Councillor McNeil, Net Zero 2050 Roadmap motion. The resolution of council on the 28th of September 2021 regarding item 10.3 Net Zero 2020 Roadmap be rescinded to allow the new council to consider the roadmap against budgets and their priorities.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this item come to council very close to the caretaker period. At the time I asked or suggested it should be left for the new council, given it is a direction for council to take. Look, I think commend the staff for the work they've done, and the principles that it represents, I think, are very sound. However, the cost, the $250,000 a year, plus whatever the cost of council staff to create the action plan and do the implementation, hasn't been outlined. The financial implications are not yet known, as stated in the report. So I'd just like to put on ice. We're facing, I think our council staff are stretched now. They're really stretched. This is a lot of resource that is going to be taken away from the core business of council. The cost, like I said, is unknown. The Local Government Act states clearly that councillors via the councillor handbook have to consider all expenditure against other competing priorities. We don't know what the total expenditure is, so it's very difficult to do that. And what do we get for it? It's great. It's good to be a leader. But what are our priorities right now? I think our priorities are facing the avalanche of closures of power stations and coal mines. That should be our focus. I don't think we have the capacity to lead with this. And like I said, I just like interest rates are obviously going up, more pressure on our financial position. I'd just like to have this rescinded and maybe brought back to council in 12 months when we're better positioned.
May I speak?
I'm just going to get someone to second that motion before we enter debate. Someone wants to second that motion from Net Zero 2050. Councillor Marshall, second. Now, that's Councillor Marshall, you don't wish to speak for? Okay, Councillor McNeil. I'll go Councillor Scholes.
Just starting out, Councillor McNeil.
Just a point of order, not in my favour. I think a rescinding motion requires 2 seconds.
Okay. Councillor Marshall, does someone else wish to second that motion for Councillor Dunn? For the sake of yes, Councillor Dunn. So, do you wish to speak, Councillor Dunn? Or, okay, Councillor Scholes, the mic is yours.
Okay, even in Councillor McNeil's comment then, he made two statements. Unknown costs of $250,000. You can't have both. I think if I remember the recommendation originally,
Can I just clarify?
Can I remember the recommendation originally? It said we need to start the process and a potential budget of 250 be allocated for it. The target within that roadmap as well complies with the state government's current target, which will be made mandatory to us in the very near future. Putting it off 12 months, we might not even be allowed to do that by the state government, let alone what's going to happen in the federal government. So you're actually going into denial. This is the world we're in. We just had a federal election that proved that the community as a whole has certain aspects and what concerns with regards to this. The thing that was put before council was to start the process to look at what council needs to do, had to do, to try and get somewhere near that target. And that's all it was about. With an unknown budget, the part of the process was to determine the budget. That was the whole thing. How do we do this and what will cost us going forward? That's what the motion was about.
If I may just jump in there, what I'm seeing here is that I think it's been communicated, I can seek clarification from both of you guys here. You're talking about the funding. I think Councillor McNeil's is around the roadmap and how we fund to get there. That was not financial.
No, Councillor McNeil's concern is his perception of money spent.
Correct. And if I may have a right reply, the cost is unknown. You read the report, it says financial implications are not yet calculated. And I'd say there's a fair bit of work in that because the amount of staff hours involved wouldn't have yet been calculated. But I will agree, given the election, the changes in legislation are probably upon us.
If I could.
Yep. Councillor
a couple of things Councillor McNeil mentioned, a bit ironic, that we're not a leader. I'll guarantee you, Councillor McNeil, we're not a leader, mate. There wouldn't hardly be a representative organisation in the country or Australia that haven't already got these policies in place a long, long time before this council did. In fact, we're not a leader, we're a follower, and a follower by a long way. Wouldn't it be a great advertisement? In fact, I think it'd be a great embarrassment. I've heard the Mayor speak on radio about bringing industry to town, bringing renewables. It's a great spot to build renewables, great spot to build industry, to bring renewables. Wouldn't it be a great advertisement for this Shire that we wanted to bring renewables and we wanted to bring transition we spoke about? So we wanted to transition as we transition away from coal.
And diversify manufacturing as well.
Yeah, and also transition and renewables. We spoke about all that sort of stuff, not just you, everyone has. We spoke about transition. Wouldn't it be a great advertisement that come and build your renewables here, come and transition all our coal miners into whatever renewable jobs here. And by the way, your local council doesn't even care enough to have a policy to address it. Hang on. I just think we've actually got what Councillor McNeil wants. You've got control of that. The 250,000 effectively says, spend it how you want. Whatever money doesn't get used, I think we've heard the words, whatever money, any unspent funds will be retained for reserve allocation in the future. We can effectively make it up as we go. And when I say make it up as we go, I mean that's how the renewable sector and the net zero, that's how it's all working at the moment. We don't know what's going to happen in years to come. And lastly, I thought we'd already had a report, albeit a verbal report, about the impact this is going to cost or what it's going to cost us in grants. We haven't got a policy. If we just, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor McNeil, but if we just worry about it in 12 months' time, what it's going to cost us in grants. I mean, you only got to pick and read the paper each day and the media, every second grant is a grant on, whether you've got a policy and how your policy is going to address it on renewables. Wouldn't it be great to get rid of this policy and cost ourselves millions of dollars in grants? And certainly, I mean, I couldn't see how this council could hold its head up and go cap in hand to the state government and say, come here and build. Coal's a good example. Come here and build renewables and do all that sort of stuff when the council can't even have a policy that supports it.
Just a right reply. I didn't say we weren't a leader. I said, are we in a
point of order?
Are we in a position to lead?
Councillor Woodruff, sorry.
Councillor McNeil gets a right of reply as a mover, not to every comment that's made in the chamber.
Correct.
I've verbalised. I have the right to clarify a statement. I was verbalised.
Okay, yes, you do. You can clarify.
So that's what I said. And Councillor Drayton has just supported my position. Really, he's saying that the cost is unknown. What is the cost? Like the grants that we've missed, that's what's missing in the report. What is the cost of this? If the cost is that we're $200,000 better off based on grants that we're going to win, shouldn't that be in the report?
Okay.
If I can get just clarification.
We can't do that, sorry.
I'm not going to clarify what he said.
I'll let you clarify. Right. No, sorry.
No, I was going to ask, can we move the motion? That's what I was going to ask.
The motion is now before us. The rescission motion, seconded by Councillor Marshall and Councillor Dunn. Commit that to a motion. If I can have a show of hands as to who supports this rescission motion.
Can you read the motion out?
The rescission motion, the resolution of council on the 28th of September 2021 regarding item 10.3 net zero 2020 roadmap be rescinded to allow the new council to consider the roadmap against budgets and their priorities. For those, could all those in favour please raise a hand? Councillor McNeil. Sorry, we've got Councillor Douglas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I think you're frozen. I'm up.
Lean back, mate. You can't see your hand.
Do that again. Show of hands for all those in favour, please.
I think you're frozen.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those against.
My hands up.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Declare that one defeated. And questions with notice. Item 15.1. Questions with notice from Council Bowditch. Information be noted. Sorry, I haven't got that up in front of me at the moment.
Excuse me, Stephen. I think you're frozen at your end.
Has someone got the question with notice there that? Sorry. So the question with notice from Councillor, I've got it up now, sorry. Councillor Bowditch has presented the following questions with notice for council meeting on the 24th of May 2022 as follows. The information be noted. Councillor Bowditch, are you happy with the information noted in that report?
Yes.
Speak to it. Okay. So you're moving that motion. Does someone wish to second it? Anyone? I'll second it. Now put a raise of, ask for a show of hands on that one. All those for?
What's the motion?
Yeah, I don't know.
The information be noted.
Oh, right.
So it's moved by Councillor Bowditch, seconded by myself, and I'm just asking that show of hands. So it's
Yeah, we've got it, but I just can't see with it.
It just says the information, should say motion, recommendation, so yeah. Okay, moving on to councillor reports. Councillor reports. Anyone with any councillor reports? Vote. No.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd like to just congratulate yourself and the council and whoever lobbied the Labor government for the very generous contributions to our council, or our Shire LGA. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor McNeil. Any reports?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Bowditch.
I attended the Rural Fire Service Medals and awards out at Denman along with Derek, our Deputy General Manager. It was a really good day, well received, and a lot of firefighters deserve a lot of accolades for what they do for our community.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Bowditch, and that's been noted. 17 questions for the next meeting. Sorry, you've got a report, sorry?
Yeah, I have. I just want to say that I attended on Saturday night at Singleton the Indigenous Spectacular, and it was very well put together, and it's been decided in 2 years' time it'll be in Muswellbrook, so hopefully we'll get the attractions that they had and the number of people they had. There was a lot of Muswellbrook people there as well.
Yeah, it was great. I'd also like to say that I was there and it was a very, very good day. Lots of people.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Anyone else? No? Questions for the next meeting? Councillor Woodruff.
Not really a question, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to give an accolade to the staff that were involved in preparing Denman Township and the old footy ground for the Diesel Dust and Rust and Market Day. The place just looked sensational, and it was really pleasing. Everybody who went there commented. We were hoping to get about 35 trucks, and we got 157 items of machinery, motorcycles, cars, and most of the gentlemen that like old rusty dusty things were also made the extreme comment that it was good to have somewhere the missus to go to keep them out of their hair, so it was just a great event all around. So if the Deputy General Manager or the General Manager could pass on the thanks to the staff, it was just extremely appreciated and well done.
Thank you, Councillor Woodruff. We normally throw that under reports, but we'll put a question on the back of it as to which council staff do we thank. Thank you.
Just a quick one, Mr Mayor. Is there any progress on the identification of Ramrod Creek on Denman Road?
Sorry, can you clarify?
Any progress on the identification signage for Ramrod Creek on Denman Road? Thank you.
I'm being told by the Deputy General Manager you can answer that now.
Thanks very much, Councillor Mel. Yes, we're progressing that with Transport for New South Wales. Yes.
Thank you.
Any further questions for the next meeting?
Yes. Just a report. I don't think I missed a report on where we're up to with Mr. and Mrs. Walker. That was going to come back to this meeting, and has it?
Yeah, I can speak to that. We've had a meeting with Mr. and Mrs. Walker in relation to that. They're currently seeking through INRA
National Resources
Yeah,
Agency.
the National Resources Regulator, that may have an exemption. They may fall under a category. They're at Tocal, where they met up with someone from there, and they seem to be gaining ground in relation to that item. So they may. So yeah, they were much happier. So it was to come back, but I removed the item. The general manager removed the item when we're sitting in the room because we're giving them time to action that plan and get it in place with the resources that they're utilising. So, any further questions for the next meeting? Okay. Do I have a motion to go into closed council? Councillor Marshall and then Councillor Lecky seconded. All those in favour, raise your hand. Okay, we'll adjourn into closed council now. Thank you, everyone. You're more than welcome to stay around and hear the outcomes of the closed council item, but there's every chance that we get through every single one of these items. There's no one in the gallery? I'm not going to. You don't co-governance, Melissa? There's no one in the gallery? There's no one in the public gallery? No. Okay.
For the recording.
Recording 19.1 was approved.
Wait there, we've got to start recording. Are we recording? Thank you.
19.1, the tender was approved by council. The tender of 19.2 was approved by council. Tender 19.3, provision of street sweeping, was approved by council. 19.4, supplies and delivery of waste depot, multi-purpose truck and attachments, was approved by council. 19.5, container deposit scheme, was approved by council. 19.6, the visitor information centre, was approved by council. 19.7, the youth programs, Muswellbrook, was approved by council. 19.8, the execution of refinancing $7.98 million loan was approved by council. Execution of a new $2.5 million loan was approved by council. Loxton House works on hold was approved by council. The council hospitality services was removed due to the previous motion in open council. Opening and operation of Muswellbrook Indoor Aquatic Centre has been approved. Partial rates write-off of rates from 19.13 was approved. And we resumed in the open council. I declare the meeting closed, and at 9:06 until the next meeting being the extraordinary meeting next week.